Hi, everyone, and welcome to this next session or next podcast in our expedition to the XR Knowledge Metaverse. Again, with me today are my colleagues, Jon Greene and Renah Wolzinger. Sorry, Renah. And we're here to maybe explore a few more thoughts about how the knowledge metaverse is changing the way teaching and learning occurs. And while we were talking about that earlier today, we ran across a blog actually here on our own eonreality.com web link. And here's a quick link. You can see this same blog here at the bottom of the screen. But it was asking, why will the next 10 years of edtech smash the last 10? And that's something to really think about. And I think it piqued all of our interests when we saw that topic, because we, being in the field that we're in, have seen so many changes come over the last 10 years in edtech, and the way primarily augmented and virtual reality has really changed teaching and learning process and the tools that are available to help people learn more effectively and in a more exciting and engaging way. So we thought we would look at this a few topics out of this blog, and hopefully you'll find the opportunity to go and see this and look at these top 3 reasons that we're going to be unique. And we thought we would maybe share with you our perspectives on what each of those mean to us as we work through the process. So I'm going to actually share the screen here, let you see the blog for just a moment. And the link again here is here at the bottom. And the first point that came out was just a discussion about, what is going to happen over the next 10 years. And 10 years, is really a long time in ed space. So, you think about it sometimes within the next year of what's going to happen and what's going to make things different. But this article shared three main topics, and we want to talk to those, which the first one was the ubiquity of smart devices. And then reason number 2 that we think that edtech will grow in the next 10 years is that finally, and really truly, finally, is that it truly works. And that's the exciting thing about it, is that the access and availability of it is there. And the reason number 3 is there's this race on to now build this new knowledge metaverse and the ways that we can use these technologies to change the teaching and learning process. So in a nutshell, it's kind of a quick intro summary to what was on our mind today as we were thinking about this next podcast. And so I think to kick it off, I'll turn it over to Jon and Renah first to give their thoughts on what reason number 1 really means to them, that this ubiquity of smart devices and what that means to the future in the next 10 years.
Great, thanks, Jamie. I think this is a really good point here that we're looking at in terms of smart devices and how it's become the norm in education. Now, I've worked with many educators across different markets, and they've told me it used to be that teachers will say, "Put your cell phones away" when the class time comes. But I've seen this trend where more and more we're incorporating technology into the classroom as part of the learning medium. Since learners are in their devices, using what captures their attention. And this blog has really interesting points here. It talks about just the sheer increase of volume in terms of access around the world. From 2017 to 2022, global smartphone devices increased almost 50%. About 84% of the world's population has access to some sort of smartphone device. I think these are trends that we're only going to see an increase. And I think as educators, it's a great time to take advantage of these tools and really work with our learners and with technology rather than against it.
We lost Renah.
Yeah, I think she wasn't able to hear. So
okay.
She sent me a message.
Well, there she's back with us. And so welcome back, Renah. We did interrupt the show for you, so welcome back. All right, so Jon just shared with his thought on the ubiquity of smart devices, and Renah, I would like to turn it over to you and get your thoughts.
Sure. So I couldn't hear the whole first part, Jamie, until just now. So I'm going to listen to y'all and then chime in a little bit.
All right, so we'll keep you in the dark and just throw you out in front of our guests here today. But basically, we were talking about the blog that's on the EON Reality site. And the 3 main reasons of why the next 10 years of edtech will smash the last 10 were 3 things, which was ubiquity of smart devices, that it truly works, and that it is a race to build the metaverse. And Jon just shared with us his thoughts on the ubiquity of smart devices And I thought I'd give you a chance to comment on that, and then I'll say something, and we'll move on to the next one. So, your thoughts?
Absolutely. I think the light came into my head when I saw my own nephew holding his phone with EON on there. And the question he asks is, why aren't we learning like this? And, and he's probably a visual learner, and he spends his day doing things like Roblox or Minecraft. Minecraft is a big one, and other games. And I did notice, it's a real different way to grow up like that, to understand 3D. Like when I see kids playing games and they play in 3D and know the orientation, everything so quickly, I realize how different that their brains must be working than the way that I learned in 1D. Pencil 1.0 is what my app was. So, I think with there's a couple of things I think about, just 5G, 4G, 5G, the speed of the internet. Devices, a whole computer that you carry with you. Before, when I was learning, that was a Star Trek idea, and now it's real. And then now the evolution of glasses and goggles, where glasses, were kind of before its time, and now with Apple's new goggles coming out, I think the idea of bringing that gamer environment into learning is going to be a big game changer. I really do think that those device changes, where things are more convenient, you can carry them with you, they don't run out of batteries, they work on any internet, or they work on 5G, is going to make a huge difference in the way that you can create learning opportunities. So start with that.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you too. And often when I think about it, I talk about it from two standpoints. Of one, that everything we did before this time period of now were what I like to call random acts of progress. We've all seen those exciting things where someone used augmented or virtual reality in a unique and creative way, but it never went to full potential to go in place. And then the other key thing that I see happening now over the next 10 years is, and the really big thing to me, is that it comes down to access and engagement. That because of this ubiquity of this large number of devices and access to devices, new ways of teaching and learning can be deployed that will allow students to use those smartphones and tablets that they carry with them every day, or those gaming experiences that they use, and put those into their own learning experience. Whether it's created by their instructor or they create it themselves as part of a learning task that they share with their classmates, there's just this whole new way of learning that is emerging, and I think that's really going to drive the future in a rapid way. But it all comes down to, I think there's a consistency now to me of the devices that are available. That they all have the same capabilities, whether it's Android or iPhone or any other device that may come along. That it still gives us that capability to share this content, where you build it once, deploy it in many ways, and then people can take off and use it and can do some creative and different things. So I think we all see this future of what the access gives us with devices, that it no longer requires the big systems as it did in the past and the high expense. We can now share it in a much more cost-effective and easy way with devices that people already have. So I think that kind of addressed the first one. So the second point in the blog talks about the why that it truly works now, I guess, is the key thing about it. And there were a few things that were in here that were captured, but the regular student remembers 30% of what they hear and 20% of what they see. So if you think about that for just a moment, how does that mean, or what does that mean to anyone thinking about applying an XR or augmented virtual reality type of application to their teaching and learning process? How can this be used to increase that access of content, of what you see and what you remember? And so to that end, I think we'll talk for just a moment about why we see XR truly working in versions that are available now and that are becoming available as we go forward, especially as we see the emergence and growth of the EON XR platform with tools like Merged XR and Spatial Meetings and other products to come out down the road, I'm sure. So Jon or Renah, whichever one would like to hit that first, I'll turn it over to you, and then I'll finish up with my thoughts at the last.
Great, Jamie. Yeah, I think is a great point that this article makes here, and the second point in terms of I can read about it, I can look at a 2D image, but when I see it in 3D, it's a completely different experience. It engages different senses, the emotional part, of learning, the memory recall of learning. And it just opens up so many more possibilities for students. I like to make an analogy of language learning space. I can read about a language, I can memorize the conjugation, the verbs. But if I spend 6 weeks in Spain trying to learn Spanish, I'm going to have a completely different experience because I engaged the senses. I saw my environment around me. I made connections. I was able to listen, watch the visual images, hear the audio, video. So those senses that we're tapping into really enhances the whole learning process. And AR, VR, we're getting closer to reality. So as we can get learners the closest as we can as possible to a real world experience while we're tapping into all these different senses. Much different experience than just reading about specific content. So as you can see, and many studies have backed up what we're talking about here, show that AR, VR has a huge potential to impact education.
John, I couldn't agree more. And a couple of things that really excited me about conversational language and how you can learn it much more rapidly. But also, I think what you're describing is that we're so much more than lessons, it's experiences. And so we get these experiences from our XR environment or XR thing. And so it's not just learning lessons or using lessons, it's about the whole experience of XR and how it can change the way that students engage and learn and progress going forward. Renah, your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to equate this to what you see behind me is music. Some people say, well, you can just watch a video. You don't have to read a book. Everything's on Google, YouTube. Well, I equate that also to listening to music. So as a musician, the only thing that can keep me awake all night is actually music. And why? Because it stimulates your whole brain. So when I'm playing music, like playing a piano or composing music, I'm thinking about math, right? Intervals, chords, and then I hear the sounds and I have to construct that together in something that's going to make music. Same with playing music. I'm reading music, I'm reading the chords, the notes, and I'm doing something depending on what instrument I'm playing, and then making that sound, but also being creative, being musical, performing, entertaining. And so that is all of my senses. And so when I try to memorize stuff, usually for me, this is the way I got through school, by the way. I got through school by learning, watching Grammar Rock in the 70s. I think that was called.
Yeah.
And I would never be able to memorize grammar. I became like a grammar expert because music I can remember the whole thing. I remember all the words of the songs. I remember all the words of the Constitution, the preamble, all of that.
Right.
It's that whole sense thing. And I think that's why I love AR and VR, because that's what it does. I'm a student who had trouble learning things just mathematically, like areas like chemistry or understanding biology and like photosynthesis and these big concepts. But for me, for my kind of learning, seeing those things, interacting with them is what was always missing. So when I did learn those concepts, it was because I went to work and did those things. And I think AR, VR gives you the opportunity to actually learn it before work when we're supposed to be learning it. So, it's a huge gap that in my life fills in those holes by being able to interact with things, see them, make them bigger, understand visually what that looks like while I'm also learning the technical end. So it's a huge change in education that I think a large percentage of learners would benefit from, and going from that kind of 10-20% learning to up to 70-80%, that's exactly what we want.
I agree totally. I thought, my first thought when you said it was conjunction, junction.
Yeah.
What's your function? So, and to that point, I think that learning by doing, this is how it truly works, because you can actually experience it. And in the 20 years I've been following VR in education as a way to improve education, I've always had the one phrase that said, you can put someone in a high risk, high dollar environment without putting them in a high risk, high dollar environment. In other words, you can be safe, you can try, you can learn, you can experience in a simulation based mode, but take that same thing and mix the real world with the virtual world and overlay all these experiences and audio and all those pieces that all that come together to make it seem real is another way that this really works to improve the way that people learn and how fast they learn, and hopefully how long they retain it, and their retention stays because they're engaged. And so it can help grow the whole learning program, because this works as a means to engage and train those students in unique and different ways. But yeah, thanks. That was a great set of points from both of you. And also, I liken this to systems thinking, in that how you don't just see one simple component of something, you see that everything has a system of parts, and the learning experience has its own system of parts, and the things that they learn about has its own system. And so you see all these things come together because you're doing it in a visual way. I think that's another way that it really works. And so lastly, the last point in our blog here that we're reviewing today, shared on the race to build the metaverse. First coined in 1992 by science fiction writer Neil Stephenson, the novel Snow Crash, the term metaverse is creeping ever so closer into reality. And I think as a team here, we've been looking at EON, what we call the knowledge metaverse, and our belief that knowledge is a human right, and how all this can come together to create this new metaverse using XR tools and the platform and the associated items that go with that to increase student experiences and student learning. So as you start thinking about this term metaverse that we hear a lot, I'd like to get your thoughts, Jon and Renah, and on what you think that looks like in the next 10 years. Where do you think this metaverse is going to go?
I'll take a stab at it first. And like in my life, I'd like to be living in the Bat Cave or something. So I think about this a lot, being a visual person. I would love to have a virtual classroom with like audio mixing, and people come in and record. We share music. We have our own label, like my own space. And I'd like, kind of like Pinterest, like to create several spaces, because I have several interests in sports and other things. And so I think it'd be the opportunity to go the next level off of Pinterest into really your whole environment, sharing things in a new way. I'm having opportunities to share content with each other, institution sharing, and I think that would increase the learning and understanding. It's also kind of global peace and global awareness and global understanding. I think that's a super key thing for the next generation, and I think this will really push that forward.
Yeah, just to add to that, what I think it's really exciting, companies are starting to work together to build this vision, and we're going to see a lot more collaboration between institutions, between the corporate sector and education sector coming together. I see a lot of synergy there, a lot of opportunities. Being able, like you said, Renah, share environments. I think just much as we're in social media right now, we're sharing pictures, videos. I think in the education space is a huge opportunity to bring in environments where we can attend a lecture at the location. If I'm in a history class, I'm learning about I'm in Roman times in Italy, and I want to go to the Colosseum. Well, let's have a lecture at the Colosseum, built in a 3D model. Let's walk around as we're listening to the lecture, talk about history. Things are going to become much more alive. We're going to be able to make much more connections, connect with one another, all through the power of this new visual medium that I think is going to really take off in the powerful tools of AR and VR. So that's where I see it's headed. So I think we need to buckle up. Things are going to pick up speed very shortly, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're both totally right. And just to tag on with, I think I'd see it also as just kind of this global coming together, that whoever, whenever, or wherever you are, you can come to the metaverse to get a variety of experiences from ancient history through what the future may be, and get this mix of tools and environments and ways to engage with one another that are unique to anything we've ever had before. I think that shows a lot of promise for what we can get in the future for augmented and virtual reality, and the way that it can really change things in the next 10 years. So it's an interesting blog. I hope you were able to pull the long link here off the bottom of our screen to figure out what's going on with the future and how you see yourself perhaps fitting into this. We're seeing more and more education institutions exploring the metaverse, the knowledge metaverse, the tools that go into that as ways to better train students and engage them. And things are really different today than they were just a year ago when we were in the middle of the pandemic, because learning changed dramatically. It had to. We couldn't come face to face anymore. We couldn't necessarily put students into labs to where they could have that experience on real equipment. We had to find alternative means. And in finding those alternative means, I think we found new ways to supplement, enhance, and improve our teaching and learning process through the integration of these tools into our teaching environment. So I'm really excited to see what the next 10 years will bring. And I look backwards to one of the things that when I first started this, we quoted Alvin Toffler and Bill Gates, as what the future was going to look like. Toffler from Future Shock back in the 80s for those who really are old like me. But anyway, Bill Gates at the time, I think it was around 2004 or 5, we read this white paper where he said, by 2020, you'll have refrigerators that will be able to tell you that you need milk and that they've got apps in them and all this kind of thing. And by 2014, that was already there. So it had already short-timed his perspective and his vision, I guess is what I'm trying to say in 1,000 words or less. But what we're seeing now, I think with the metaverse and predicting what 10 years will be, I think because of the coming together of the metaverse, it's going to maybe happen more rapidly than 10 years. And I think we're going to see an uptick because of the post-pandemic and the benefit of what we've learned from using these tools and new perspectives on teaching and learning. I think we're going to see this go maybe even faster than within 10 years for how all the things that can be done. And then it's to be talking about what's the next big thing. And, so this is where we are. Where do we go from here? And we're for once within the XR VR space, AR VR space, I think we're on a uniform platform. We're on a uniform starting point, that there's not a whole lot of testing or unique stuff to go otherwise. Now it's ways to take what we know and use it in different ways to do other things going forward for the future. Well, that was all I had for the day to add onto this part. I thought I'd leave it now for any closing comments y'all would like to make to wrap up. And then after that, we'll think about what our next podcast will be when you join this team again, as we explore and expound upon our thoughts for the knowledge metaverse going forward. So I'll leave it to Jon or Renah for any closing comments you'd like to make.
I just want to say beaming up is my next hope. So I'll be beaming up my avatar to different metaverse experiences and then maybe real beaming up after that. But yeah, super excited. Students love this and they get it real quick. And so looking forward to seeing everybody hopping on and we'll see you out there.
Absolutely. Well, just my part, I encourage everyone to check out this blog post, and we have many others coming out, and lots of exciting information around this metaverse and what does it mean for you and your institution. I think there's some exciting questions you could be asking, and how can you participate in this metaverse experience? So that's what we're all about here, engaging in this discussion, seeing where can we bring this, and we're going to do it together with other institutions. So excited to what's ahead.
There are exciting times ahead here at EON Reality. Lots of new things happening, new announcements today, and I'll leave that for other venue. But check out our website at eonreality.com, which will be getting a new look very soon, and learn more about this knowledge metaverse and how you can use it in improving your teaching and learning process and working with students or other trainees that you do in the future. It doesn't necessarily have to be in education only. So thank you for joining us today. And we'll see you at the next Expedition to the Knowledge Metaverse presentation sometime soon. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Jon. Thank you, Renah.
Thank you.
Thank you.